The red dust of Titan 7 clung to everything. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving another streak of crimson across his tanned skin as he surveyed the asteroid mining station he'd called home for the past 3 years. The facility wasn't much, a series of prefab modules connected by pressurized corridors, clinging to a massive asteroid like a mechanical barnacle, but it was his. Well, technically it belonged to Helios Mining Corporation, but Jake ran it alone, extracting precious metals from the asteroid's core while the company took 80% of the profits and left him with just enough to survive. It was a lonely existence, made bearable only by his AI assistant Aria and the promise he'd made to himself. 5 more years, then he'd have enough saved to buy his own ship and start fresh somewhere civilized. Incoming transport in 30 minutes, Aria's pleasant synthetic voice announced through the station's speakers. Manifest shows, oh my. Jake looked up from the ore processor he'd been repairing. Oh my what? It appears your mail-order companion request has been approved. The transport is delivering a Faloran female, matching your specifications. Jake's heart jumped. He'd submitted that application 6 months ago through the Frontier Companion Program, a semi-legal service that connected isolated workers with aliens seeking off-world opportunities. He'd honestly forgotten about it after months of silence. Are you serious? He scrambled to his feet, suddenly aware of how he looked, covered in dust, wearing a grease-stained tank top and work pants that had seen better days 3 years ago. Quite serious. Her name is listed as Liara Moonwhisper, age 26 standard years, occupation, botanical specialist. Interests include... I need to clean up, Jake interrupted, already heading toward the habitat module. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The transport only just entered communication range, and may I point out that you specifically asked me not to disturb you during ore processing shifts? Jake cursed, stripping off his filthy clothes as he rushed through decontamination. A botanical specialist. Perfect. He'd been trying to grow food in the station's tiny hydroponics bay for months with minimal success. Maybe she could help with that. And more importantly, maybe he wouldn't be so goddamn lonely anymore. The shower was quick and cold, water was precious out here. Jake, dressed in his least worn shirt, ran fingers through his dark hair and tried to calm his racing pulse. He'd been alone so long that the prospect of actual conversation with another living being felt almost overwhelming. She's very pretty, Aria commented helpfully, displaying the woman's ID photo on the bathroom mirror. Though I should mention that Falorans are a bit more spirited than your profile indicated you preferred. Jake stared at the image. She was beautiful. Lavender skin, large golden eyes, pointed ears that swept back into hair that looked like spun moonlight, delicate features that suggested grace and gentleness. Spirited how? Well, their culture values independence and transport docking now, another voice cut in. The station's automated systems. Airlock sealing. Pressurization complete. Jake took a deep breath and headed to the docking port. Through the reinforced window, he watched the transport detach and begin its journey to the next lonely outpost. His stomach churned with nervous anticipation. The inner airlock door hissed open, and Jake's welcoming smile died on his lips. The woman who stepped through was definitely not the delicate botanical specialist from the photo. She was tall, easily 6 feet, with lavender skin marked by intricate black tattoos that covered her arms and disappeared beneath a leather jacket that had seen serious combat. Her hair was indeed silver white, but shaved on one side and styled in elaborate braids on the other. Golden eyes, yes, but hard and calculating, scanning the space with professional efficiency. She wore combat boots, tactical pants with at least a dozen pockets, and a belt loaded with equipment that definitely wasn't botanical in nature. Most concerningly, she had 2 energy pistols holstered at her hips and what looked like a plasma knife strapped to her thigh. "You Jake Morrison?" she asked, her voice carrying a rough edge that suggested she'd spent more time shouting orders than whispering sweet nothings. Yes," Jake managed, his brain trying to reconcile this heavily armed warrior with the gentle botanist he'd been expecting. She nodded once, stepping fully into the station. Behind her, 3 large duffel bags floated through the airlock before it sealed shut. "Good. Name's Zara Blackthorn. And before you ask, no, I'm not your mail-order bride." Jake blinked. "Then who? Your actual bride is currently enjoying a very generous payment I made her to fuck off to the Andromeda sector." Zara grabbed her bags out of the air with practiced ease. "I needed a place to lay low for a while. This seemed perfect. Middle of nowhere, One guy who wouldn't ask too many questions, minimal security. Wait, you paid off my bride? Jake's confusion was rapidly turning into anger. You can't just... Already did. She moved past him, heading deeper into the station with the confidence of someone who owned the place. Don't worry, you'll barely notice I'm here. Just need a few months for things to cool down back in civilized space. Jake hurried after her. Like hell you'll barely notice. This is my station. You can't just... Zara stopped and turned so quickly that Jake nearly ran into her. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Muscles defined beneath the lavender skin, scars visible on her neck and collarbone, and those golden eyes sharp enough to cut steel. Listen carefully, minor boy. I've got half a dozen bounty hunter crews and at least 2 corporate hit squads looking for me. This place is perfect because it's registered under Helios Corp, not your name, and my pursuers have no reason to check random mining outposts. She leaned closer. So here's how this works. You let me stay, keep your mouth shut, and when I leave, I'll pay you enough credits to buy your own ship and never have to see another mining laser again. Jake's mouth went dry. How much are we talking? 50,000 credits, universal standard. That was more than he'd make in 5 years of mining. Hell, it was enough to buy a decent ship and still have operating capital left over. But looking at this woman, this clearly dangerous, obviously criminal woman, Jake's survival instincts were screaming. What did you do? He asked. What are people hunting you for? Zara's expression softened slightly, something almost like respect flickering in those golden eyes. Smart question. Most guys would just take the money. She stepped back, giving him space. I stole something from a very powerful arms dealer, information that could bring down his entire operation. And yes, I'm one of the good guys, or at least, I'm trying to be. Trying to be. I used to work for him, was one of his best enforcers for 5 years. She pulled off her jacket, revealing more tattoos and a muscled physique that explained how she'd survived in that line of work. Then I saw what his weapons were being used for. Kids caught in crossfire, colonies destroyed, couldn't do it anymore. Jake studied her face, looking for signs of deception. What he saw instead was exhaustion and something that might have been genuine regret. Arya, he called out, can you verify any of this? Checking. Yes, actually. Zara Blackthorn appears in multiple bounty databases, wanted by the Calroth Syndicate for theft and desertion. However, there are also several news reports suggesting she's been anonymously providing information to law enforcement about illegal weapons trafficking. Zara raised an eyebrow. Smart guy, you actually checked. I'm not stupid, Jake replied, but I'm also not a hero. This station is my life. I can't afford to have it destroyed because you brought trouble here. Fair. Zara dropped her bags and crossed her arms. Counteroffer. I pay you the 50,000 regardless. But I also help out while I'm here. I saw your ore processing setup. It's inefficient as hell. I did 6 months on a mining vessel before my current career. I can increase your yield by at least 30%. Jake's eyes widened. 30%? Maybe more. Your drilling patterns are all wrong for this type of asteroid composition. She gestured toward the station's core systems. And your life support is a disaster waiting to happen. That CO2 scrubber is hanging on by a thread. How can you possibly know that from being here 5 minutes? Zara tapped her temple. Cybernetic enhancements. I can hear the frequency variation in your recycling pumps. They're about 2 weeks from catastrophic failure. Jake slumped against the corridor wall. She was right about the scrubber. He'd been jerry-rigging repairs for months, knowing he'd need to shut down operations for a week to properly fix it. A week he couldn't afford. Arya, is she right about the scrubber? Running diagnostics now, Sam. Oh dear, yes, she's quite correct. Current projections show complete failure in 12 to 16 days. Fuck. Jake ran both hands through his hair. Fine, you can stay, but we set ground rules. Zara's grin was sharp and beautiful. I'm listening. First, you help with the mining operations and repairs like you said. Second, you don't bring your problems here. If your hunters find this place, you leave immediately. Third, he paused, realizing he was negotiating with someone who could probably snap him in half. Third, you stay out of my personal quarters unless invited. Deal. She extended a hand. Though I should warn you, the botanist you were expecting. Total fraud. She was running a scam taking money from lonely frontier workers and never showing up. You dodged a bullet there. Jake shook her hand, noting how her grip was firm but not crushing. How do you know that? Because I do my research before I steal someone's identity. Found at least 30 guys she'd scammed. You would have been number 31. Zara released his hand and grabbed her bags again. Now, which bunk is mine? The first week was awkward as hell. Zara was true to her word about helping with operations. She overhauled the drilling patterns, increasing ore yield by 35%. She completely rebuilt the CO2 scrubber in 3 days, using parts Jake didn't even know they had. She even fixed the damn coffee maker that had been broken for 8 months. But she was also loud, brash, and completely unconcerned with personal space. She walked around in sports bras and tactical pants, her heavily tattooed torso on full display. She took long showers despite Jake's attempts to explain water conservation. She played music at volumes that made the hull plates rattle. And she was always there, in the mess hall eating rations while cleaning her weapons, in the control room monitoring systems while doing one-armed push-ups, in the observation deck staring out at the stars with an expression Jake couldn't read. "You know," Jake said one evening as they sat across from each other in the cramped mess hall, "you're nothing like what I was expecting." Zara glanced up from the energy pistol she was field stripping. Obviously. Liara Moonwhisper was supposed to be a demure little botanist who'd cook you meals and maybe warm your bed if you were nice. Jake felt his face heat up. I wasn't. Relax, minor boy. I'm not judging. You've been alone out here for 3 years. That fucks with people. She reassembled the pistol with practiced efficiency. I've seen guys lose their minds after 6 months of isolation. The fact that you're still relatively sane is impressive. Relatively? You talk to your AI like she's a person. Arya is a person. I'm flattered, Arya's voice chimed in, but I'm quite certain my sentience is debatable at best. Zara laughed, a genuine warm sound that Jake realized he hadn't heard from her before. See? Relatively sane. Jake found himself smiling despite his frustration. What about you? How do you stay sane in your line of work? The laughter died. Zara's expression closed off as she holstered the pistol. I don't. I just stay alive. She stood abruptly. I'm going to run a diagnostic on the shield generators. They're showing micro-fluctuations. She left before Jake could respond, leaving him alone with half-eaten rations and a growing list of questions he knew she wouldn't answer. 2 weeks in, everything changed. Jake woke to Arya's urgent voice cutting through his sleep. Jake, we have an unidentified ship approaching. It's not responding to hails. He was out of bed instantly, pulling on clothes as he ran to the control room. Zara was already there, wearing full tactical gear, her weapons loaded and ready. How many? She asked, her voice deadly calm. Single ship, small craft, fast. It's matching our orbit. Arya displayed the data on screens. Configuration suggests bounty hunter design. Shit. Zara's jaw clenched. They found me faster than I expected. Jake's heart pounded. You said we'd have months. I said I'd hoped for months. Bounty hunters are persistent bastards. She moved to the weapons locker, pulling out a rifle Jake hadn't even known was there. Get to the safe room. Lock yourself in. This is my station, and it'll still be your station after I deal with this. Move. But before Jake could respond, the station lurched violently. Alarms blared as something impacted the hull. They've deployed boarding drones, Arya announced. 3 of them. They're cutting through the outer airlock. Zara swore in a language Jake didn't recognize. Change of plans. How good are you with a weapon? I've never shot anyone. Not what I asked. Can you point and pull a trigger? Jake swallowed hard. Yes. Good enough. She tossed him a smaller energy pistol. Safety's off. Point at anything that comes through that door and isn't me. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just shoot. The next 10 minutes were the most terrifying of Jake's life. The drones breached the outer airlock, small but deadly machines armed with cutting lasers and stunning charges. Zara moved through the corridors like liquid death, taking down 2 of them with precise shots before they could even detect her. The third one cornered Jake in the hydroponics bay. He froze as the drone's laser locked onto him, its mechanical voice announcing, "Target acquired, initiating capture protocol." The pistol felt impossibly heavy in his shaking hands. "Shoot it!" Zara's voice echoed from somewhere behind him. Jake pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked him on his ass, but the shot went true. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks and molten metal. "Not bad for a virgin," Zara said, appearing at his side. She was breathing hard, a cut on her cheek bleeding lavender blood. "But we've got a bigger problem." She pointed to the view screen showing the ship that had deployed the drones. It was powering up weapons. "They're going to destroy the station," Jake breathed. "They'll kill us both just to make sure they get you." Zara's expression was grim. "Not if I get to them first." She grabbed Jake's arm. "How fast can you get the mining lasers operational?" "The mining lasers? Those aren't weapons. Everything's a weapon. If you're creative enough, can you fire them remotely? Jake's mind raced. Yes, but they're designed for precision cutting, not... Perfect. Target their engine core. I'll handle the rest. What followed was the most insane plan Jake had ever participated in. While Zara hacked into the enemy ship's systems, creating a feedback loop in their shields, Jake aimed the mining station's industrial lasers, designed to cut through solid asteroid rock, at the vulnerable engine core of the bounty hunter vessel. Fire! Zara shouted. Jake pulled the trigger. The laser, meant for slow, careful extraction of precious metals, punched through the ship's weakened shields like they were paper. The engine core erupted in a brilliant explosion that lit up the asteroid field. Silence fell over the station. Did we just kill them? Jake asked, his voice shaking. No. Zara was watching her tactical display. They ejected escape pods. They'll be picked up by the next ship that passes through this sector. She turned to look at him, and something in her expression had changed. You just saved both our lives, miner boy. Jake collapsed into the chair, adrenaline crash hitting him hard. I thought you said this place was safe. I said it was supposed to be safe. Zara knelt beside him, her hand surprisingly gentle on his shoulder. I'm sorry. You were right to be worried. This is my fault. Damn right it's your fault. But Jake found he couldn't quite muster real anger. His hands were still shaking. What do we do now? If one found us, more will come. Zara was quiet for a long moment. I should leave. Take one of the escape pods and lead them away from here. That's suicide. Maybe. But it's not your problem. Jake looked at her, really looked at her. The tough warrior exterior, the scars, the weapons, but also the guilt in her eyes, the way she'd tried to protect him, the gentle touch on his shoulder. What if there's another option? He heard himself say. What option? You said you have information that could bring down this arms dealer. What if we sent it to the authorities? Not anonymously, publicly. Make it so there's no point in hunting you anymore because the damage is already done. Zara blinked. That would work, but it would also paint a massive target on my back. Every criminal organization in the sector would want revenge. So we disappear. Both of us. Jake stood up, the plan forming even as he spoke. I've got enough saved to buy a ship if you add that 50,000 you promised. We take the data, broadcast it on every channel, and then we run. Together. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're trying to do the right thing. I know you could have let those drones kill me, but instead you fought beside me. I know. He hesitated, then pushed forward. I know I'm tired of being alone, and I think maybe you are too. Zara stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she laughed, that genuine, warm sound he'd only heard once before. You're insane. You're the one who hijacked a mail-order bride program. Fair point. She stood, extending her hand. Partners? Jake shook it. Partners? Arya's voice interrupted. I hate to break up this heartwarming moment, but we have another ship approaching. Multiple ships, actually. And they're broadcasting Helios Mining Corporation identification codes. Zara and Jake exchanged glances. Shit, they said simultaneously. The next 3 hours were a blur of frantic activity. While the corporate ships approached, ostensibly to inspect the station after detecting the explosion, Zara uploaded her stolen data to every public server, news network, and law enforcement database she could access. Jake, meanwhile, was frantically backing up Arya's core systems and transferring his meager savings to untraceable accounts. They're hailing us, Arya announced. So they're demanding to board for a routine safety inspection. Routine, my ass, Zara muttered. Someone tipped them off that I'm here. Can we run? Jake asked. In what? This station isn't exactly mobile. Jake allowed himself a small smile. No, but the emergency escape shuttle is, and I may have been modifying it for the past year. Zara raised an eyebrow. Modifying it? How? Let's just say I wasn't planning to work for Helios forever. That shuttle has double the standard range, upgraded engines, and enough fuel to reach 3 different systems. For the first time since they'd met, Zara looked genuinely impressed. You were planning to run. Eventually. Looks like eventually is now. Jake grabbed her arm. Come on, we've got maybe 10 minutes before they board. They raced through the station, grabbing essentials and loading them into the shuttle. Arya's core was portable. Jake had made sure of that, and they secured her data crystal in the ship's systems. Upload complete, Zara announced. The data is everywhere now. Every major news organization is already running with it. We've even got a senator calling for investigations. Will it be enough? To bring down Calroth? Probably. To keep us safe? She shrugged. We'll find out. The corporate ships were docking as they sealed the shuttle. Jake initiated launch sequence, his hands steady despite the circumstances. He'd run this scenario in his head 1,000 times. Leaving this place, starting over somewhere new. He'd just never imagined having a heavily armed alien warrior as a companion. "They're trying to override the launch," Arya reported, "but I'm blocking them. You'll have approximately 30 seconds after we launch before they can pursue. That's all we need." Jake looked at Zara. "Ready?" She checked her weapons one last time, then nodded. "Let's go." The shuttle launched with a roar of engines, blasting away from the asteroid station Jake had called home for 3 years. Behind them, the Helios ships scrambled to pursue, but Jake's modifications paid off. The shuttle was faster, more maneuverable, and already plotting a jump to hyperspace. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Space twisted around them as they entered hyperspace, leaving the asteroid field, the corporate ships, and Jake's old life far behind. 3 months later, the independent trading post of Haven's Rest orbited a gas giant on the edge of civilized space. It was the kind of place where people didn't ask too many questions, and everyone had something to hide. Jake stood on the observation deck of their new ship, a modest cargo hauler called the Drifter, watching the swirling colors of the gas giant. Behind him, he heard the familiar sound of Zara checking her weapons. "You know," he said without turning around, "most people relax after they've been cleared of all charges. I'm relaxed. You're cleaning your guns, again. It's meditative." Jake smiled. The Senate investigation had been swift and brutal. Calroth's empire crumbled in weeks, revealing a network of corruption that reached into dozens of systems. Zara had been offered immunity in exchange for testimony, which she'd given via secure video link while they hid in various backwater stations. Now they were free, truly free, and Jake still wasn't quite sure what to do with that freedom. "I've been thinking," Zara said, her voice closer now. She'd moved to stand beside him without him noticing. She was always doing that. "About what comes next. And we could go anywhere, do anything. You've got enough credits to retire somewhere nice. Beach planet, maybe. Somewhere warm." Jake glanced at her. In the 3 months since they'd fled the asteroid, they'd fallen into an easy partnership. She taught him combat skills and ship maintenance. He taught her poker and how to actually relax. They shared meals, traded stories, and slowly, carefully became friends. But there was something else there, too. A tension that neither of them had acknowledged. The way her hand would linger on his shoulder during training. The way he found excuses to stand close to her in the ship's cramped corridors. The way they both pretended not to notice. "What do you want?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I want to keep doing this. Not the running and hiding part, but the having a partner part." She turned to face him fully. "I spent 5 years as an enforcer, taking orders, doing terrible things, and I spent 3 years before that, just trying to survive. This is the first time in my life I felt like I'm choosing my own path. And what path is that? There are a lot of people out there like you were, trapped in bad situations, working for corporations that don't give a damn about them. I want to help them." She gestured to the ship around them. "We've got a ship now. We could do freelance work, help people who need it." "Like heroes?" Jake couldn't keep the smile out of his voice. "Like assholes with a ship and too much free time," Zara corrected, but she was smiling too. "What do you say? Want to be an asshole with me?" Jake pretended to think about it. "Will there be shooting?" "Probably. Running from authorities?" "Occasionally." "Terrible food and cramped quarters?" "Almost certainly." "Sounds perfect." Zara's smile widened into something bright and genuine. Then, before Jake could react, she grabbed his shirt and pulled him into a kiss. It was nothing like he'd imagined in his lonely nights on the asteroid. It was better, electric and fierce and tasting of the spiced tea she'd been drinking. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zara's golden eyes were bright with mischief. "So," she said, her voice husky, "about that personal quarters rule, I believe I said unless invited," Jake replied, his hand settling on her waist. "Consider this an invitation." Arya's voice cut through the moment. "I hate to interrupt, but we're receiving a distress call from a mining colony 3 systems over. They're claiming their corporate overseers are withholding medical supplies." Jake and Zara looked at each other. "What do you think?" Zara asked. Jake grinned. "I think we just found our first job." "Our first paying job," Zara corrected. "I'm not doing charity work. You're literally suggesting we help miners against corporate exploitation, for reasonable compensation." Jake pulled her closer. "You're impossible. You're the one who decided to partner with me. Best decision I ever made." She kissed him again, quick and fierce. "Damn right it was. Now come on, miner boy. We've got assholes to fight and people to help." As they headed to the bridge together, Arya chimed in one last time. "For what it's worth, you two are far more entertaining than my previous assignment of keeping one human from going insane in isolation." "Glad we could provide entertainment," Jake replied. "Though I should note," Arya continued, "the probability of you both getting killed doing freelance hero work is approximately 73% within the first year." Zara laughed. "I like those odds." Jake took her hand as they settled into the pilot seats. "Me too." The drifter's engines roared to life, carrying them toward whatever adventure awaited. Behind them, the asteroid mining station sat empty and abandoned, a memorial to the lonely life Jake had left behind. Ahead of them was everything else: danger and excitement, and a woman who'd literally hijacked his mail-order bride application and somehow become the best thing that ever happened to him. Not bad for a guy who just wanted someone to talk to.